here with HarHaran, who is doing great work in India with education and rainwater harvesting through the World of Water Action Forum. Wonderful work. When I see what you're doing and been able to participate in your tech talks, I'm very excited to have the opportunity to talk with you this morning. So Hari, if you would, please give us a little background on yourself and on the work that you're doing.
Okay. Thanks, Frank, and good morning to you. Well, it goes back 40 years. The intent always has been to try and see how we can first demonstrate. And with such powerful demonstrations, one nurses the hope that others will want to emulate. And as we went along through the 90s and the first decade of this century, we found that such isolated, inspiring examples are important, but they're still not helping us make the shift in ways that people can see how easy it is to be able to conserve with solutions that are available at extremely viable economic costs. As we have gone along over the second decade, we found that there is one way we could do this, and that is to hammer down the message, just the way that the Global Waterworks is doing between you and Mary, to reiterate this message again and again and again, that there are simple ways of conserving water without compromising on comfort or on convenience. Now, and that led us to believe that we should reach out to citizen leaders, and the World of Water Action Forum was therefore born. And the first founders of the World of Water Action Forum, said that action is part of this and not just discussion and debate. You know what we have had for 3 decades across the world. And so we have formed action groups, the idea being that we go down to different neighborhoods and communities in each city. We have reached 4 cities now and hope to reach probably a dozen cities in India with a very simple model. I will call it a methodology for public participation, which can be taken to other cities. It's worked successfully in 2 urban agglomerations, Chennai and Bangalore. And it's now hoping to work in Hyderabad, which is a city of about 6-7 million people. Another one called Trichy, which is a city of 1 million. And as I said, if it's an urban agglomeration, we are talking of over 10 million, which is Bangalore, the city I sit in, and Chennai, which is the other city where we have a wonderful partnership. Thanks again to Raj and Global Waterworks and so on, with the International Center for Clean Water, which is housed in the larger campus of the Indian Institute of Technology, Madras, or the IIT Madras. And they have pitched in to try and see how they can bring in citizens too to participate. So it's a nexus between users and solution providers that we need to establish, whether at GWW or at WOW.
So a little bit on your background and what motivates you to do this?
If you ask me about deeper motivations, I must say that I grew up in the 1970s, fed on some of the, I would say, the Gandhian ideology, not what he wrote. There were other wonderful people who were inspired by him, like J.C. Kumarappa, who all knew how to look at this world way before this threat, sort of befell upon us all. And such great foresight and vision that they showed. In the mid 1980s, when I was doing my doctoral thesis from one of those schools of business and economics in the United States, I realized how they had already set these patterns in the 1930s. And then there were other fathers of the environment, not so much of ecology, like Aldo Leopold, for instance, of course, David Thoreau and others. Then later we found Paul Hawken, writing in the late 90s, mid 90s, for instance, on how commerce and conservation need to straddle and nicely. There were other Indian writers who wrote about the ecological challenge in India, like Ramchandra Guha, for instance, or Dr. Madhav Gadgil. So many of these people became my role models. And I found that everything that we do, every single city, company, IT park, apartment is a water economy first.
Okay, very important.
If it is not a water economy, first it doesn't even happen. That is, anyone who is creating a settlement is first looking at what the water bearing capacity of that place ought to be. And then he creates. You know how all our settlements came around rivers. And therefore, for us to look at every city and every single slice of a city as a water economy, I think is critical. And that's what I have learned. And that's what is inspiring me to see if we can do things.
So on the work that you've done, and it's very hard, and we know that to get people engaged and so forth, and then to move forward. And we also know that you're very action oriented. So give us an example of some of the impact that you have seen and had already.
Well, I put it like this to you. There was one community of apartments. It just, there were some, it was all led by women. These people must have quietly listened to some of our conversations last year. They didn't say anything. They didn't engage. They didn't ask any questions. 4 or 5 months later, we hear that one of the women who was participating was the president of her association. And she brought one simple change, thanks to many things that she learned here. And that reduced the number of tankers in their apartment by nearly 1/2 a month. They were getting about 100 tankers of water of 6,000 liters. They reduced it by 1/2 with some simple measures that they put into place with the learnings that they secured from these conversations. Wow. Strangely, we can't take credit for it, I believe, because they didn't come back and ask us as to what they should be doing. I think it just inspired them. There's another lady. The regulars here will know her. Her name is Professor Sarala, Sarala. She is part of a college which has about 4,000 engineering students. In the last maybe about 2 or 3 months, she has been telling me how some of these strands of learning that she picks up from the WOW Action Forum discussions have helped her to form little groups of engineering students, final year and pre-final year and so on. And they're trying to see what they can do on the water economy in their college and in the villages around. So these are, I think, nice things to hear.
Yes.
But we need to do a lot more. Yeah.
And it'll catch momentum, because in what it sounds like is in the work that you've done in the tech talks and the action forum, that you've planted some seeds and people acted on them.
Yeah, I must acknowledge the deep sense of gratitude that I carry for Mary for coming up with a very simple idea. See, most ideas are utterly simple, and if they have to be effective. So Mary came up with the idea of how we can invite some of those people who are sort of represented in the Global Water Works Forum. And so we began, we have had today about 27 of them and nearly a year of such meetings of the Tech Talk Forum alone. How much of that will impact? How many of those water entrepreneurs and water startups will actually secure market interests or consumer interest in countries of Asia or in South Asia that we belong to, is something that is not up to you and me. We can only bring people together. Then it is up to the, shall we say, the chutzpah of the entrepreneur to see that he picks up the conversation with those people who have participated, whom we have brought into to the table in such meetings that we have here. I think post-COVID, the advantage is that it's a lot less expensive to have these e-meetings and online meetings. They're seeing people face to face. They have they're matching voices with, it's not like you're talking to people without faces.
Right.
They know who they can connect with, and whether it is people at the offices at Global Water Works or people here at WOW, we're willing to help them get together beyond that first conversation. So I think Tech Talk is beginning to make a difference. It'll take a little while. I would say the same of the other Action Forum meetings. Yes.
And the Tech Talks and certainly the other Action Forum meetings reach well outside of India. They reach around the world, that people sit on those calls and potentially get inspired to act.
True.
So you've established a partnership, and it's a long and healthy partnership now with Global Waterworks, and there's a lot of organizations out there. What do you see with Global Waterworks that has worked well for you, that is part of the Global Waterworks community?
I think essentially the sincerity of purpose and the intent that you guys bring there has helped us connect with a few more people with who I think would not have come to us as easy as with the process that GW has put together. Let me take an example. At one point of time, I think it's sheer, it's this wonderful magical charm that Mary brings to the process. She brought a lady called Indrani Pal to one of these conversations. She was from the Columbia University. She listened to two of these conversations on the Action Forum. Indrani was triggered and excited by what we were doing. She then invited us to see how we can possibly do some research documentation of things that had been put into place in India and in Bangalore. So you see, such connects make a difference to how we can go. And I think between all of you in Global Waterworks, you're constantly looking to see if there are other people who can be brought to this forum in a way that the global impact can happen beyond one United States. I think that is the important thing that you all bring, of not looking at only the United States, but to see how you can make a difference in other places too.
Very good. So coming back to you, where do you see, the Water Action Forum and everything that you're doing, where do you see it going in the future? What do you see is the future for it?
You see, ideally, the Water Action Forum should become irrelevant and should die if all citizens across places and some of these key stakeholders in water utilities begin to see sense in adopting these basic sets of solutions for water. The day we reach that, we will have become irrelevant. And I think that's an important aspiration to have in some ways. The other is this, see, there are only one or two things that the government state water utilities can do, which is how do I plug leakages across cities, in the distribution lines. This is one. That's about it. They can possibly do a little bit on harvesting of water in public spaces, in parks, and a few things. Beyond that, we can't expect very much from these guys. What we need to be doing is to see that we have, among all bulk water users, the individual water user is more difficult to sort of reach out to. So I'm looking at only the bulk water users, like apartments, in industries, for instance, IT parks, and such hotels, hospitals. If guys like these decided to take to acceleration of the adoption of such solutions, which are all, so obvious in the domain of water, I think we'll have made a change. And that is why I keep saying the solutions are available. It's not for want of solutions that change is not happening, as you also know, Frank. It is, it is therefore something that we need to do, like you once said, memorably, bring the lay person, the person who does not understand the concern on water, to this community. The more we bring of such people to the water community, the greater will be the impact we will make.
So, Hari, I appreciate your time this morning. It's always wonderful to spend time with you and one of the things that motivates me is certainly your enthusiasm, your stamina in just staying with the mission. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you, Frank. Gracious of you for having said that. I think I draw as much energy from you. It's therefore the spirit of camaraderie and of a deeply shared sense of mission that keeps both of us going at GWW and at WOW. Yes.
And we'll keep connecting people and making it work.
We will. We shall.
Thank you, Hari.
Thanks. Thank you, Frank. Yeah.